Welcome back to Between Two White Coats, a podcast designed to help you be the healthiest version of yourself. I'm Dr. Michelle Plaster, a family medicine doctor.
And I'm her co-host, Amber Foster, a family nurse practitioner. In our combined 30 years in medicine, we've seen a lot.
We're discussing key issues surrounding health and wellness, answering some of our biggest questions, overcoming health obstacles, and giving patient-centered advice in hopes of educating you and providing the tools you need to live a healthy life.
If you find our podcast helpful, please consider subscribing so you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review. This will help other people find our podcast.
Thanks for joining us. We look forward to serving you. Welcome back as we talk a little bit more about burnout with Dr. Sammy Chang. Sammy shared with us in our last episode some of his story. He is a 10-year ER or ED, for those of you who don't sit in the white coat world. We used to call it an emergency room. Then we realized it has lots of rooms, so we started calling it an emergency department. Same thing, guys, same thing. And so he is a 10-year ER doc who has really been coming to some realities of his own on what happens if you've invested 10, 12 years getting into a field and then work 10 years in that field and realize that you're burnt out. And so Sammy is sharing his story with us, and we realize as we go through this, there is so much to talk about in burnout. It is such an important topic. So we want to go a little bit more to in this episode on who is burning out. And so I'm going to share a bunch of statistics because I love the research and the numbers. But Sammy, tell us in your emergency room experience and hospital experience, just what's the feel in the emergency room across the board on job satisfaction?
It's, to be 100% honest, it's pretty terrible. Everyone has a sense of just frustration, like there's just an air of frustration, and to a person, all of the people I work with, from honestly housekeeping up to my partners, are amazing and good people, but everyone, they just...
And it has nothing to do with patients.
No.
Like, people
No.
need to hear that. It
Yes.
has nothing to do with the patients, because that's what you went into medicine for.
It has nothing to do with the illness, and it
Yeah.
has nothing to do with the patients who are being kind and generous.
It's all the demands. That's exact. It's all the demands on us. Like if I get to shift at 6 a.m., so that's our first day shift. I get there at 6 a.m. The waiting room has already probably exploded. The poor 2 overnight members have been dismembered. I mean, they have been beat down to a pulp, and so more people are checking in. So as the overnight guy, you dread that 4 to 5 or 5 to 6 a.m. hour because tons of people are coming in. You're the only one there. You want to leave on time so you can go to sleep, and you will not be able to because there's so many level 3, which are complex patients that are going to need more than an hour of a workup. But I'll get there at 6 a.m. My first thing is, how can I get you guys out of here? So we have mental health sign-outs. That's a whole nother part of emergency medicine burnout. We are not mental health providers, and we have a ton of mental health that comes through our ED.
And can be there for days.
Weeks. We've had people there for weeks. And
that is really something.
We're tasked with taking care of them. We're not mental health. We didn't go into psychiatry.
And again, what helps contribute to burnout? The things that we are powerless, that make no sense in any job, and you are powerless to fix.
Yep. So we have to end up getting the sign out, fielding calls about these patients that have ridiculous demands most of the time because they're typically not truly psychiatric cases. But in any case, so you've got that. Then all of a sudden the transfer call center calls over and over with people trying to transfer patients to our hospital. You haven't even been able to start seeing your patients. And then, you get a run of patients. So where were we at with that? That was
you are walking in knowing
yes,
I'm walking into a fire.
What you're hitting.
I'm not in control. I can't put this fire out. Yep. And I mean, you can walk through the lobby and know this entire next 12 hours is going to.
And the waiting room continues to build,
yeah.
And you keep wanting to help the group, your partners, the emergency department. But then when you have those few patients you need to sit and take time with to talk to because that's the right thing to do, and you can help them on that level. You don't have time to do that.
And there's where you could get some job satisfaction back.
Right.
So I went into this to help people, and if I can sit here and help this person then I feel like this is what I'm doing this for, and they've stolen that from me as well. I think that in hearing like what's going on in our emergency rooms, it is valuable for anyone who is listening to this podcast to own the fact, to recognize and empower ourselves as a society to save our emergency rooms. Healthcare is in a bad place, and the emergency rooms are in the front of that line.
Yeah.
When we talk about who are the top 5 careers for burnout, number 1 is healthcare, and I'm going to come back to that because that's where we live. Number 2 are emergency service personnel. We are paying EMTs and paramedics almost nothing, firefighters almost nothing, to literally run into fires. Everyone is running out of somewhere and you're running into it. I think you deserve more money. And again, 100%. It's probably not the running into fires that's burning them out. It's all the other stuff that doesn't need to be that way. Number 3 are social workers, people who are called to meet some people in their hardest place and don't have the resources and aren't getting financially compensated for the hard work that they're doing, and simply see some of the worst stuff and never really get to complete their cycle of feeling and moving on to the next horrible thing. Number 4 is teachers and educators. And
they also do not get paid enough. Let's
yes.
just stop there for a
and
second.
Can you share the story that you shared with me about your patient's father?
So the beautiful thing about being in family practice is we get families. And that's one of my favorite things about family practice is, I'll see so-and-so's cousin and then they tell me, will you see my cousin? And I'm like trying to figure out who all these people are. But I do truly have some families, like nuclear families that see me. And I have a family who I've been seeing for probably 8 years now. Yeah, probably 8 or 9 years. And pretty much since I've been here. And lovely family of educators. They're wonderful humans. They're fun to be around. I actually knew them outside of medicine before they came to see me here. And one of their children had an appointment this week. And she said, I know my dad loves me, but I don't think he likes being around me. Like I can cry talking about it because she's precious. And he does love her. And he does like being around her. But so I had an appointment with him the next day. His wife was with the child, and then his wife was coming with him. She was like, I'm coming to his appointment. We need to make some adjustments. And I was like, okay. And he has his own trauma, but then also like his job in education is so demanding. And so they said, depending upon how his day goes at work, depends on how he acts at home. And the kids recognize that. He recognizes that. And so I said to him yesterday, because I'm a blunt provider, dear Lord, my patients know this. I was like, you are a wonderful family, but I can't let you do this because you only have 5 or 6 more years with your daughter at home, and she knows that you love her, but she doesn't think you like her. And like, do you want her to go into the world thinking that her worth is based on like, not love?
And huge. What a valuable story. But when we are burnt out in our jobs, we said this in the last episode, we don't get to flip a switch. It's not always a cognitive decision. You don't get to just go, and now I go home to my family who I love, and I'm not carrying any of those feelings and frustration and existing kind of like in the, oh my gosh, the world's a horrible place all the time. So you come home and for him to actually get to see how he is presenting to his daughter, it would be heartbreaking to actually think.
Well, and he's the nicest, like most kind man. I've never seen that side of him here. Of course, which I also told him if I ever did, he was gonna have to back it up. But I was like, he is the most lovely human, and I said, I'm shocked to hear that truly. And I asked him, I said,
the people that matter most to us are the ones who are taking
the brunt of it,
absorption.
Yes, and I said, what can you do between home and work that might be something like fun for you, or something that would trigger for you to say, like to take a deep breath, or on your drive home, or like what, like just mentioning. And I was like, give me something stupid. I was like, my stupid example was, it doesn't matter where I am in the world. I'm from Alabama. I grew up there. If I hear Sweet Home Alabama, I don't particularly love Lynyrd Skynyrd, but the song always makes me happy. And I was like, do you have something like that? And he was like, he literally sat there for probably 5 minutes and then asked his wife, what do you think that is? He had no idea.
So that is super valuable. And Sammy, I'm interested to hear if you felt this. I think that as we're burning before we burn out, we go from life is good to life is not good to so apathetic and so like trying to disengage because we don't like how we're feeling that we actually lose connection with what would make me happy. What would, like, you go from kind of happy to not happy to numb. And the numb, I think, makes me the most nervous. The apathetic makes me the most nervous. Did you experience that in your emotions?
You know, when you talk about that, it really sounds a lot like the, depression spectrum. And I don't think I ever felt numb. One thing I wanted to bring up last time was I realized, and I'm thankful that I had insight into this. And I think, I'll bring up faith because that's a huge part of what's helped me kind of start this transformation out of what my burnout was leading to. But I was seeing everything as a negative, the world around me, the people around me, obviously not my family and not the hobbies that had also kept me healthy. But seeing things as a negative, like traffic is a negative, everything, and I didn't like that feeling, and we don't have to have that feeling. And so I think, when we moved out to the country about 4 or 5 years ago, it was a 30-minute drive, and you go out of Athens, which is traffic and annoying, and then it's farmland. And that was huge for me because that was where I could kind of take a deep breath and settle and decompress, and just because I like looking at farmland. I like, when life was slower. I feel like everyone should slow down.
And that you kind of have to make a mental decision, because you can, on your whole drive home, be thinking about that annoying thing that happened at work, or you can really take in your surroundings and really say, oh, I love this farmland, that beautiful rolling hillside is so gorgeous, and pay attention to it. Or you can allow yourself to stay in that kind of, oh, work was so horrible today, and I feel like I'm still having to process through all of that.
Right.
In kind of hitting the number 5 of finishing up with the teachers and educators, and God bless them, they don't get a lot of the things they deserve. And if you ask any teacher why they're burnt out, they're not going to say because of teaching kids. That was their calling. Yeah. They're going to say because of the administrative burden, because of this testing that shouldn't be done, because of the things they are powerless to change. That isn't what they went into the field for. And then the number 5 is lawyers and judges. And of course, we can imagine, again, it's a really big bridge to get there, a lot of commitment, and then a really hard job. A lot of the jobs that you see more burnout in are jobs that it isn't always what you signed up for. You're fighting. It's a hard job anyway. So the extra stuff of administrative burden, fighting with medical record, electronic medical records, and fighting with insurance companies and those kind of things, for us, I think, are what throw people over the top. But circling back to healthcare workers and the emergency that is our emergency rooms, from 2021 to 2022, we lost 150,000 healthcare providers. That was primarily doctors, remembering it takes about 12 years to build one of these doctors, so we can't just replace them overnight. And then after doctors, nurse practitioners, and PAs. All of these highly trained, highly skilled, and experienced. You don't want to replace these experienced doctors with all of the new grads. That we have to have a spectrum here for our field to be strong. And there are 40,000 intern residency spots in our country, which means we welcome 40,000 people to do their residency, which is a minimum of 3 years every year.
So and that's not just one field. So
that's like all the fields. That's all the fields. And knowing that fewer of those people are choosing ER. When 20 years ago, when I was going into medicine, ER was highly competitive and hard to get a residency spot in. And now ER is not filling. Even
when I went in, 12 years ago, it was second or third most competitive specialty.
Yeah, and now it's not filling.
Last year, they didn't fill something like 50% of their residency slots. Well, this year they said they did, but if you look, it's a lot of international medical grad. So we're not getting, I don't mean this in a mean way, we're not getting the top caliber people who really chose it, and people who need emergency services, from paramedics into the emergency department, are going to be suffering in the next 10 years. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but
this is real.
We're pushing people out.
Yep, this is real.
That would do good taking care of sick patients when you need them the most.
When you have a true medical emergency, you want a skilled emergency physician to greet you at the door. That's how we save lives. and we have fewer of those people. And so, yes, there are 40,000 intern spots, period, new resident spots, period, and that's for all fields.
In the entire United States.
Yes.
Like, I think people don't realize, like, that is not a lot of doctors.
And when ER physicians, tens of thousands of ER physicians were surveyed, 65% answered that they were burnt out. So we are leaving the field. We are high levels of burnout. So number one is emergency room physicians at 65%, and then it drops to primary cares that are in 55 to 60%.
That's so sad to me. I don't feel burnout.
These are the pediatricians, the family medicine doctors, the internal medicine doctors. I don't feel burnt out either. I will say yesterday when I'm reading for all of these podcasts, doing podcasts always makes me smarter. And one of the things was like, you might be burnt out if something small seems to create a huge emotional response. And I love my job. We try to get rid of the obstacles that are unnecessary here. I feel so blessed to get to work with patients. But yesterday, someone handed me a death certificate. It was a patient I've been taking care of for 10 years. She was 64 years old. Last I talked to her a month ago, I was telling her she should start back to hiking because she was doing so well. And they hand me her death certificate. So I'm processing what happened. How did she die? What's going on? But it is a constant issue for me to try to be nice when I have to fill out the death certificate for a patient that I did not pronounce dead. And because of the disconnect in the healthcare system, this is a system issue. Primary cares get all the death certificates, but the hospitalist or the coroner, and we don't even know that they're dead, much less why. And I have to write a cause of death on there. And so I'm like feeling the emotions of losing my patient, but also another death certificate that I have to write a cause of death, and I don't know why she died, and no one's told me. So in that moment, I was like, if I get one more death certificate and I don't know why, what am I supposed to, this is a legal document, I just lose it. And then our beautiful MA Tori was like, Dr. Plaster, how can I support you right now? What can I do to make life easier for you? Which helped. And I got to feel all that I was feeling. And then I went, but this is super important because this person's family cannot move forward with getting their insurance policies or anything until I finish the certificate. So I'm gonna not worry about how the system is failing me here, and I'm just gonna do my job. So no, I'm not burnt out, but I have my moments. But in general, primary cares are 55% of the burnout, and then it goes down from there. So I think we have to recognize that doctors aren't telling their children or their friends' children to go into medicine. And if they are, they're not telling them to become doctors. I have so many friends who are successful in medicine and have practiced for a long time, and their children are nurse practitioners or in IT. They're in IT. Smart kids are choosing other fields. And when you have a field of people who say, this job isn't rewarding, this job isn't great, then we're not recruiting. We're not actively showing up and talking the next generation into doing this job.
Which I mentioned not during the podcast, but kind of when we were talking off air. One of the things I think we do is when you go to a place like you're at a social event, what do you do for a living? That's one of the things that's common to be said, just to get to know people. And I noticed many, many years ago, I have done this for years, but instead of asking kids during their wellness checks, what do you want to be when you grow up? I ask, what problems do you want to solve? Because it's okay to change your mind, what you want to be when you grow up, when you're 40.
Yes. I love that. And I think we put pressure from an early age
to be successful.
And what if you've been saying you want to be a doctor since you were 5, and then you get there and you go, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. And you've wrapped your whole identity into it.
Yeah.
And so then what do you do and how do you do that?
Yeah.
Sammy, tell us when you started recognizing this is not giving me life satisfaction. This is not how I want to feel or spend my days. That's a hard thing to sit with. How did that go?
Like you said, it was a slow burn. Over the course of 9 years, I actually went to part-time status by year 3. Should not have been able to. So our group contract, you can go part-time at 5 years, but like I said, the group is such a good group of people. They realized where I was at. So I went down part-time. Then we lost a few providers moves, jobs, other jobs, I had to go back full time, hit kind of that maximal anger burnout level again, went back part-time. And then last year I went down to 50% thinking, okay, all I need to do is work less so then I can recover in between and be the person I want to be outside of medicine and to my family. And that almost was worse doing 50% time, because then I could see normalcy and I could find myself finding patience and grace when I was with, my kids. And
ooh, that's valuable. I want to sit there for half a second and say, lots of times the burnout becomes normal. The burnout becomes how you now feel. And so when you were always angry, frustrated, existing in a dark space, it kind of became normal. And then when you said, okay, this isn't good, I don't want to feel this way, and you actually gave yourself some time to recover, then you realize it was a pendulum swing of, oh, now I feel good, and now I realize how bad that is. And I think if you're in a job and you go on vacation and you almost have a panic attack at the thought of going back to work on Monday, or if you're giving yourself like, I just need to work fewer shifts and the shifts become even more painful, I think that's an eye opener. Sometimes it might be fatigue and it might be some other things, and giving yourself a little space may actually remind you that you like your job and that you can do your job well. But I think when it reminds you, oh, this is what happy feels like, and this is what really not happy feels like, then that's a valuable lesson. That
was insight. And I think also, I don't want to work to be able to then try to have vacation, to try to recover, to go back to something I didn't like. I want to have joy in what I do. And it's achievable. And y'all had mentioned, I'm going off topic here, but y'all had mentioned, people are not going into fields where burnout exists now, right? And we have scribes that come from UGA, and I tell them honestly, you need to really think hard about whether you want to go into medicine or not, because it is not what you think it is. And I tell them, do not make medicine or your career your identity. Your identity should be something separate from your career. Now, you can succeed in your career, but you don't, I don't tell people I'm a doctor. I don't even want to tell people I'm a doctor or what I do. But these are all things that I kind of started picking up on, and, I would do my best I have a short fuse. I always have. It's something I've always wanted to work on as far as my temper, but this career and burnout doesn't allow that. But with my kids, you get one chance to get it right. And this little phase from now till they're going to be 12 and things will change is so short and so precious. And for me, I don't even remember what your original question was, but for me, I've got to be present and I've got to make the most of that with my family and my kids at this age. And that was a big impetus when I started realizing, I don't have to have this negative feeling and I don't have to be angry at the world, and they don't need to see me that way because I don't want them to learn that. That was when I really started saying something's got to change. And Beth and I, we pray every night about what do we do? How do I prayed for years to change my heart, to be able to be patient, because some of my partners never get flustered and they never get frustrated, and they're really good at what they do and they don't bring it home. But that's what I was hoping for. And I think for me, it was God saying, maybe we need to look somewhere else, get a different opportunity and get outside of, like you've said, the fire. You got to step out of the fire to know what can be good. And so for me, it was just a need to change the core of who I am. I don't think I'm a bad person, but I don't want to continue down a negative road.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized it was.
So I'm hearing you say you recognized that work wasn't fulfilling. You recognized there was frustration coming from it. But then when it really bled over into your personal life, into the people you love most, is when then you recognized, I've got to do something about this. I think it is powerful to say, okay, we don't have to act on the first day that we have a bad day at work. Everyone has a bad day at work. It's called work. It's not called fun. But then to say, I spent time with it. I spoke to my wife about it. I prayed to change how I would respond to these things. And I kept feeling like this is a square peg in a round hole. And I don't need to become a round peg. I am who I am with my own skills and gifts. And this just isn't working for me. I think first you've got to give yourself permission to have that be okay. It is, what we do for a living is not who we are.
Right.
When it becomes every aspect of our existence to where we can't leave it, and it won't leave us because it's our phone going off, and then we have to step back and realize that it's not everything life is meant to be. Right. It's funny when you say in the mix of burnout and being in the ER where you feel like this was not fulfilling for me. I say to students, we have a lovely college student with us now whose dad is a doctor.
And she's so dadgum smart.
She's crazy smart. She goes to she got accepted to all the Ivy League schools.
Crazy smart.
And her dad's a doctor, and she aspires to be a doctor. And I said to her the first day that she was with us, this is the best job in the world. What we do matters, and I think when you have a job, you want to be able to make a difference, and you want to know what you do matters. That is exactly what healthcare offers people. We sit with people in their dark moments. That can be hard, but that is so fulfilling that we get to lead people to a better space. And whether that better space is actually fixing something that's broken, or whether that better space is sitting with them while they're dying and giving them comfort in really important times. What we do, I think, is the greatest thing in the world. It's hard. It's not easy, and most of us are goers. When you go, you're gonna have to go to college for 12 years and residency and all this stuff. Most of the people who are pretty laid back and thinking about living in their parents' basement for a while don't sign up. And so we are the ones who are, I will be successful. You will not tell me no. I will go. And if there's a finish line, I'm crossing it first. And so it is the personality of who finds this field. And it is a hard job with big challenges, but I would say to anyone that's wanting to go into healthcare, go into healthcare, but make sure it's right for you. Make sure it is your fit. Make sure that you choose the right field. And when Sammy and I first talked, and what we believe kind of was God crossing our paths, Sammy was talking to someone who knew me that then introduced us, and he was like, I just can't keep being a doctor. I was like, can you not keep being a doctor, or can you not keep being an ER doctor? Because being a radiologist, being a general surgeon, being a primary care, being an ER are so very different. And so I also say to people who are interested in healthcare and interested in becoming physicians, particularly, hang out with different kinds of physicians. We have different personalities. In primary care, we have to do all the rotations. And when I had to do ER, I was like, get me out of here as fast as we can. These people are sick. And when I want to sit and chat, they don't want me to. Right. But they're trying to get me to go save a life, and I'm trying to get to know people. And so it just wasn't a fit for me. But that didn't mean that medicine wasn't. It meant ER medicine wasn't. But then there are guys that you work with where they're like fight or flight junkies. And they're like riding the big waves and surfing, and then coming into the ER, and they're like, where is the adrenaline? And they're built for that. Yep. And so I do think it's important, as we're coaching the next generation of anything, find what's right for you, and recognize if it's not, that you're allowed to change your mind. Right. Yeah. There's so much in this topic, and we have not even got to the good news.
I know. We've been like,
Sammy has a whole new chapter opening.
We're so excited. Sammy is so brave. We get to talk about his bravery.
Yes. So Sammy's made brave decisions.
Very brave.
And so please stay tuned for our final episode on burnout, where we're going to start going into solutions. Doctors don't just point out what's wrong. Their job is supposed to be to help fix it. So we've been pointing out what's wrong.
Here's wrong and
We've been giving you the bad news that there might not be any doctors in the emergency room when you go in a few years. We're going to talk about how to fix this. So please tune into our next episode where we start talking about what are the solutions. So if you're feeling burnout, what are some of the things that you can do?
We like to leave you on a good note, so here's today's Tell Me Something Good. Today's Tell Me Something Good is from my beautiful daughter, Reese. She's here visiting this afternoon with us on the podcast. Reese, tell us something good.
My something good is sports. I love being with my friends playing sports, and I just like playing them in general. And I'm a freshman, and I made varsity volleyball. And I'm very excited for this new season.
Thanks for joining us today, and until next time, take care of yourself.